Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time frame it is for you. I hope you're having a freaking awesome day. Ordinary Gamer here, and we're going to discuss a few things that hopefully will bring you back to the past, that nostalgic feeling of things that we used to do as 90s gamers. Let's talk about where it all started for most gamers. A trip to the arcade. Being a 90s gamer, the arcade was a showcase of all the best games. You couldn't find this stuff at your home console. It was a step above. You used to get dropped off by your mom or ride your bike, spend hours in there. Heck, even our parents sometimes would come with, but they would find themselves halfway across the mall. Shopping. Trips to the arcade used to be a spot where we could all hang out. It was almost like a nightclub for kids back then, but it was a place that we could gather as gamers. You were able to showcase your skills by playing games while people watch with a quarter in anticipation of it being their turn. It was before Twitch. It was before any kind of streaming platform. Arcades would always keep it fresh and add new machines all the time, so it keeps your interest and keeps those quarters flowing. I grew up in a small town, so I didn't have a huge arcade to look forward to, but the arcade that I had was exactly what I needed. The second thing that all 90s kids did was watch commercials. These commercials used to be brutal. They held nothing back. Punches were flying. There used to be at least two consoles fighting it out at all times. Most of the times through the 90s, we seen Sega pitted against the Nintendo brand, each of them claiming to be better than the other. You had Sega, you had Nintendo, both fighting for your dollar. Either you were a Sega fan or a Nintendo fan, but no matter the case, you would fight tooth and nail for your brand. It was the commercial for Sega that I think talked me into purchasing my Genesis and being on that side of the coin. Had I realized back then though, and gave Nintendo a shot, I would have probably realized that some of my favorite games were on that console. Just goes to show you the influence that commercials had on us as kids. Third thing we did as kids is we would all take trips to Blockbuster or whatever your local rental place is. There's nothing more fulfilling in the 90s than going to your local rental store and perusing the shelves to find the video game you'd like to play for the weekend. There you'd find countless options of even games that you had never seen before. You'd blindly pick a game based on the cover art. And if you came for a specific game, if it wasn't there, the heartache that you felt during that, unmatched. I remember leaving Blockbuster several times empty-handed just to go home and call them several times until my copy of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the NES had arrived back to the store. Fourth thing that we did as kids, this was before memory cards, being able to save on a console, being able to save on PC, is there was a time where there was no saving. And we used to leave our consoles on. Leaving our consoles on is our way of saving our progress. However, if we lose power, or our mom accidentally shut off our NES, it's all over and we've got to start from the beginning. I remember many times pleading for my Nintendo not to be shut off because I got past a level I couldn't get past before. Now with game consoles automatically shutting off, that wasn't the case back in the day, and for most consoles, they'd never overheat. But even if they did, we were willing to take that risk because we did not want to start over. Thankfully that never happened to me so much, but if had it happened to me, I would lose my freaking mind. The fifth thing that we all did as 90s gamers is we cheated. We cheated. Any opportunity we had a chance to get past a certain level or progress in a game, a lot of us would do that. It would be a thick book that contains all the cheats, a Game Shark, a Game Genie. We had access to those particular things that would help us get further along in our games. Yes. No. If we got to a particular level that we couldn't pass and there was a code we could use, we would find it and use it. Especially if our friends had already gotten past that particular stage and you wanted to get there too, so you can gloat about how good you are on the particular game. The sixth thing that all us 90s gamers did or were forced to do was read cutscenes. Movie sequence cutscenes, including actors that are doing the dialogue. No. We had to read them. Words would fly across the screen and you had to read so you knew what was going on. I was never a big reader for these cutscenes, so a lot of times I would play games not even knowing the story. Look back now and I'm realizing that some of the games had different meaning altogether that I had no clue on. The seventh thing that we did as kids is we got together and played games in person. Whether that be a sleepover, a gaming party where you brought your favorite candy, Mountain Dew, and sat around the TV playing. There's something special about being together as a group and in the same room, huddling around the TV, playing Super Smash Brothers or 007 for the N64. There's no way to match that. It's one of the things that I'll miss a lot about my childhood. Yeah, sure, you could play with somebody online from halfway across the world, but there's something special about being in the same room with that person. Next on the list, we all played demo discs, or we read about upcoming games in magazine articles. Demo discs used to come jam-packed with anywhere from 5 to 10 different games. You'd get one level and that's it. I mean, there are times where game developers are just testing the water, and I know they do that now, but there was something a little nostalgic about getting a disc in a subscription magazine that you have, popping that bad boy in, and playing something you'd never heard of before. That's where I discovered Spyro for the first time, and Twisted Metal. They've become staples, but they started for me in a demo disc. It's not just the demo disc that you would get in the mail, you'd also play demos at stores. Your local Kmart or KB Toys would feature these kiosks, which would make you have to break your neck to try to play them. We're talking about your neck going like this. But we would sit there for hours playing the latest games. We would risk permanently hurting ourselves just to play the upcoming video game. The magazine articles would give you something to look forward to. The problem is a lot of the games that are featured never make it. And for the ones that do, it's not always 100% exactly what that game's about. The ninth thing that we did as kids is completely get blown away with upcoming graphics. I remember plenty of times thinking that it could never get any better than this. All it was a bunch of blocky heads and no mouth movement. But that's the best that we had back then. Games of today, you can't tell if it's a movie or TV show or if you're playing something. But back then, we didn't care. It was getting closer and closer to as realistic as it could get. Looking back and comparing those old games to games today, it's just no comparison. But we had to live through those moments to get where we are today. We would have cutscenes where they would legitimately just move their head like that. It was the best that we'd had seen up to that point. If my younger self could see the games of today, my head would probably explode. Lastly, but not least, we have early gaming hacks. What is an early gaming hack? As a kid, if a console was showing certain signs of failure, we found ways to fix it that were unlike no other. How many of you remember putting in a disc for your PlayStation and waiting patiently to get to that PlayStation logo so you know that your game's going to work? It was a mini panic attack that we would have. There were times that games just stopped working. But what did we do with those? We couldn't just go replace those games. I've tried different methods, including toothpaste. Putting toothpaste on the disc, letting it dry up a little bit, putting water on it, and wiping her down. How about going even further back to the Nintendo? What do we do with the Nintendo cartridges if they refuse to work? We blew on the connectors hoping to get rid of all the dust, and that was our solution. One of the only consoles that I didn't own that I've recently purchased is the Dreamcast, and it brought me back when I realized that the discs weren't loading. The fix to that was to put a book of weight on top of the disc reader so it could read the disc properly. The point is, we would find ways to make our games work properly because there was no digital downloads. There was no way to buy on an online store. What you have in your hand is the only copy that you have, and most of us couldn't replace that copy. There you have it. That's the 10 most nostalgic things that us 90s gamers did. If there's something that I miss and something nostalgic to you, I want to hear about it. Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, consider subscribing because I'll be posting similar content like this in the near future. Thumbs up are always appreciated. But until next time, stay retro, my friends.